Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new NVIDIA daily update video. So today, let's go over NVIDIA stock. Let's go over what has happened to this stock, this thing that's moving like a little snail lately, right? It feels like it's not really going anywhere. But regardless, I'll give you my thoughts. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And of course, I do share my thoughts with my members every single day. If you're interested, in my updates and whatnot in my YouTube membership, that link is down below, where I just constantly share my thoughts, post technical analysis, options flow, etc., with as little bias as I possibly can. That link is down below. For just $3 a month gives you access to the Tesla tier. $5 a month gives you access to the NVIDIA tier with Tesla. And $7 a month gives you access to Tesla, NVIDIA, plus non-Tesla, non-NVIDIA stocks that I share, opportunities that I see in the markets. And I do chart requests over the weekend in Discord with tier 3 members. But jumping into it, NVIDIA closing the day with, again, another humble 0.9% on the day, pretty much following the market for the most part as we enter a very interesting day tomorrow, of course, being CPI. If I'm not mistaken, PPI is on Thursday as well. So NVIDIA, what is it doing? What is happening? Is this stock going to finally go somewhere, or are we just going to be stuck in this kind of limbo land, just slowly stair-stepping, not really going anywhere, right? That's the main question. So NVIDIA today, it's kind of actually opened up below the trend line, arguably closed slightly above the trend line. But this is one of those things, again, where it needs to continue this momentum to the upside, because any loss of momentum will, very convincingly, again, keep it below that trend line. It's just dancing around it, right? It's being very stubborn, to be completely honest with you. But I don't like the fact that it is still technically going up on descending volume. That is a little bit of a concern for me, right? We still have those divergences that I'm still not a huge fan of, like even the MACD, for instance, you can see, right, consistently making lower lows essentially on the histogram, pretty obviously, in my opinion. So that's something you have to watch out for. So those are the main factors that I'm watching for, right? Especially going into a day like CPI tomorrow, right? Like I mentioned, the market, for instance, SPY, which NVIDIA pretty much follows SPY/QQQ. It is in this sort of ascending channel, or I shouldn't say channel, a rising wedge, I should say, which, technically speaking, you never know with CPI. I mean, maybe we break out, who knows? But, technically speaking, these patterns more often than not break to the downside. I mean, let's see if that happens. I'm not saying it has to, I'm not trying to predict these kind of things. I'm just telling you how the patterns usually play out. Let's see how that goes, right? But for NVIDIA specifically, I mentioned, how yesterday's gap up, it did actually get a crucial situation happening where this area right around here, if I just actually do something like this, right, you can see how much this area right around this general vicinity, kind of kept acting as a massive area of resistance for NVIDIA, right? Constantly getting the stock rejected over and over and over. Then we broke above it, and now we're coming back into it. And you can see the wicks, right? The wicks from today. These are all today's 1 hour wicks. Look how much support is kicking in and how much demand is kicking in, pretty much around that 142 area. I mentioned that yesterday. 142 is very, very important because it got this gap up, right? So as long as NVIDIA can hold above 142, technically speaking, the bulls are still in control. And technically speaking, about 147, still not impossible to see that as the next target to the upside. And we're holding it, right? The whole day today. Every time it dropped anywhere in that vicinity, about 142, look at this, just consistent wicks, just wicks after wicks after wicks, just constantly absorbing any selling pressure from the bulls, right? So that's a good sign, right? That is a good sign overall. So I'd absolutely be watching for this kind of 145 to 142-ish region, very crucial level. Above that, bulls still maintain control. But again, the way these things usually work is you want to wait for, strong confirmation of a loss of momentum, right? And, I've said this before and it hasn't happened yet, but what are these confirmations? And well, in this case now, because we had that move up, a loss of 141.5 to 142 is step number one. That's pretty bearish, obviously. Losing the trend line convincingly. Like, for instance, if we close near the lows of today at like 142 or lower, yeah, that would have been a convincing close below the trend line. That would have been another red flag. That's step number two, right? Number three for the step is, of course, well, we have the 8 exponential moving average. Where is it sitting at? Well, tomorrow it'll probably move up a little bit higher, probably around 141. So those are the 3 main things to watch out for, right? Now we have some warning signs like the bearish divergences, but until we start losing these very key levels, yeah, technically speaking, I mean, despite it being very, very kind of slow and honestly a little bit of a boring movement, at least compared to something like Tesla lately, the bulls remain in control. We still have those 3 things to consider, those 3 patterns. And, today could have been potentially 2 red flags, right? The trend line and losing that kind of 142-ish zone. But not only did we not lose 142, but we closed back above the trend line, or at the very least, pretty much right at it still. So the closes is really important, right? You want to wait for that close. The close is important. You don't want to always jump to too many conclusions too quickly sometimes, right? So that's kind of, what I'm eyeballing right now on NVIDIA. But again, those are the three factors, right? You want to, not financial advice, just my opinion, but you want to wait for it, more of these to kind of contribute to one another, right? If you just have one of them, that could be enough, but the more the better in terms of potentially losing that momentum and having a bearish rotation down. We're not getting that. And again, as we're not getting that, I naturally assume bulls have control. And so far they're showing that, especially with those wicks I showed you on the 1 hour time frame. Any price action that came to about that 142 consistently just got bought up again and again and again, pretty much the entire day. So with that being said, that to me tells me the fact that as long as that holds, I still view closer to this fair value gap right around here on the left, around 147. That is still my main target as long as it holds 142 roughly. So it's really that simple. There's really not that much more to say. It will potentially come down to CPI tomorrow. That is obviously a pretty big unknown factor. If I'm not mistaken, this might be the first CPI reading that factors in the tariffs potentially that got implemented a few months ago. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, of course. So could be a big one. And we have PPI on Thursday, I believe, as well. Yeah, could be pretty big. So let's see how that plays out, guys. Very important day coming up tomorrow. But yeah, let's see. So all in all, that's the main thing to watch out for. And again, if we do lose those levels, I've said this before and I'll mention it again. If we do lose that 142-ish, we start losing those, key factors I just mentioned, those 3 checkpoints, if you will. The first move to the downside, honestly, 137, 138 will be the first level, followed by closer to low 130s itself. And then worst case scenario, in my opinion, is 123 itself, which again, on the weekly is where roughly those exponential moving averages are sitting. At least as of right now. Obviously, the longer we stay up here, they're going to continue moving up. And then naturally, that means that support will be closer and closer and closer. So the fall will be less steep. But that's kind of where it is still at the very moment, roughly closer to the, low 130s, high 120s, I would say, is kind of my average price target to the downside if we do indeed get a sell-off. But yeah, that's kind of all I got for you right now. So let's see how it continues. Let's see what happens with NVIDIA moving forward. But yeah, thanks for watching. See you tomorrow. Peace.